so many ways it can go wrong doing healing work that somebody can come after you. The main thing is to understand the United States is that you're responsible for every word and everything you do with another person, especially if it relates to their health. So I can tell you up legally one side and down the other that there is no place in this country where you can counsel or practice a healing therapy of any kind legally unless you already have a legal basis to do so. And there are thousands of people every year who go to jail and who get fined and maybe go to jail for practicing some healing methodology illegally. And it doesn't matter if you have an MD. You might think if you have a lot of people think, oh, if I'm a massage therapist, that protects me. Well, first of all, massage therapy is not a medical practice. It's an allied vocational practice. It's not a medical practice. Not anywhere in the United States is it a medical practice. If nurses and doctors can go to jail for practicing healing therapies, what makes you think a massage therapist couldn't be called out? And in fact, they are all the time. Because massage therapy is legally defined in all 32 states that have laws today as rubbing on people for money. And using the word massage therapy while you're rubbing on people for money. Or advertising the word massage or massage therapy while rubbing on people for money. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, especially if you went to massage school and they never mentioned any such thing to you. I'm so sad and I'm so sorry, because all you do is go to your state and read the law. That's it. Because it defines what it is in the law. It says massage therapy is, and it says rubbing on people for money. And then it'll specialize, like in some states it'll say rubbing with your hands, rubbing with lotion or not, rubbing on feet, rubbing on hands, rubbing on backs, rubbing on faces. In some states, massage therapists cannot do facial massage because that is given to the licensed estheticians as a scope of practice. So if you want to do facials as a massage therapist, you have to go to aesthetic school and get a license as an esthetician. Okay? In some states, you can massage the feet, but you can't do reflexology on the feet. It's too specific. Too specific. You can rub on them, but you cannot do reflexology. Why? Reflexology says that when I touch points on the feet and hands, I can affect changes in organs and tissues. Well, that sounds medical to me. Why are you changing a person's organs and tissues? What right do you have to change someone's liver function or enhance their kidney function? You're not a doctor. How do you know they even have a kidney problem? And besides, you can't diagnose. Even if you knew they had a kidney problem, you could never tell them. That's illegal. Reiki. A lot of people go to jail for practicing Reiki. It's the most harmless, innocuous practice. I'm a Reiki master, okay? But it's the most harmless, innocuous practice that it's just the weirdest thing in the world that someone could be called up on some charge, a formal charge of some illegal, unethical, and immoral conduct to practice Reiki on someone. But actually that happens every day. And it's because a lot of Reiki practitioners claim to do Reiki to heal specific medical conditions. Like a migraine. I might offer to do a Reiki session on someone who has a migraine. But see, migraine is a medical diagnosis. So if I'm going to do Reiki on you to help your migraine, I am treating a medically diagnosed disease And that is illegal in most states. That's illegal. And it's prima facie. You go to court and they say, what were you doing? You say, well, she had a migraine, and so I was going to pray. I did choku rei. I did choku rei and to heal her migraine. And they'll go, okay, guilty, boom. How do you want to handle this? You want fine or jail time? Which is your preference? And you're like, wait, what do you mean guilty? No, you treated a medical condition. But I did it with Reiki, and they're like, we don't care. What do we care? How you did it. It is illegal to do it by a ordinary citizen without a license to do so, 100%. So what part of 100% do you... But it's a spiritual practice. And they'll go, okay, spiritual practice. Spiritual practice from what church? Oh, well, I'm an ordained minister with the Universal Life Church. And they go, okay, guilty. How do you want to handle it? You want a fine or you want jail time? You're like, no, wait. I said it's a religious practice, a spiritual practice, and I even named the church. And they're like, yeah. And the judge has his assistant pull up the Universal Church website, the official home page of the Universal Life Church, where you go to get your membership, your ordination. And right there on the home page is a big button that says, for Reiki practitioners. And you click that button, and there's 9 pages written by the founder of the Universal Life Church, Reverend Hensley's son, who's also Reverend Hensley. 9 pages long of how the Universal Church does not teach, does not educate, does not authorize, does not license, does not condone the practice of Reiki under any circumstances, under any conditions, anywhere in the United States. And anyone who claims to practice Reiki as an ordained minister of the Universal Life Church is doing so against church policy and doctrine as specified in this letter. And if we are contacted or communicated by legal authorities regarding same, that person's membership will be immediately rescinded and considered null and void. We do no such thing. Sign, Reverend Hensley. So the judge goes, your church says it's unethical for you to practice Reiki as an ordained minister. So not only are you breaking the law, but technically, according to your spiritual practice and the source of your authorizations, you're breaking those rules too. So no, we're not going to consider that. Boom, guilty. And that happens hundreds of times a year. That conversation happens hundreds of times a year.
How is it that, because these people are being trained by the church?
No.
Oh, they're not?
Not by Universal Life Church.
So why
No.
are they claiming that it's spiritual?
Because there is a myth that the way to get around a massage license is to claim to be an ordained minister.
Why are they, was that just one example?
And yeah, and there's a couple of organizations that you can go online and just buy a ordination.
Oh, I see.
You just make a donation. You have a statement of faith. You know, it's supposed to be cogent with their religious philosophy and all that, and you just pay the money and boom, you get it. Okay? And most practitioners that's the way they're practicing. So that means most practitioners are actually at risk, and they're being prosecuted regularly. And then every once in a while, states like, what was the most recent one I read? Connecticut. Actually pass a law and says it's illegal to practice Reiki in the state without a massage license. Which is crazy, because Reiki is universal love, universal healing, which is symbolic in design. Seifuku, choku-rei, symbols, right? That you project. So it's actually something that you do in your mind and that you do in your heart. And actually touching the client is optional. You don't ever have to touch someone to do Reiki. They don't even have to be in the same room. St. Pete 2 years ago tried to pass a law not only to ban Reiki, but to say you had to have a massage license to do it. And even if you were licensed as a massage person and trained to do Reiki, you could not legally do Reiki on someone who was not physically with you. So I wrote a 3-page document to the government of St. Pete, to the mayor of St. Pete, and to legal counsel for St. Pete. I wasn't the only one. But I wrote like a friend of the court petition for the law, right? And I said, let me give you an example. Okay. I'm actually a Reiki master. Nah, not really. I was just kidding when I said that. No, really. I'm a Reiki master. I was authorized. I was laid on hands, the whole 9 yards. It's traditional for a school. I'm a Reiki master. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Reiki healing session right now, this second, on someone in this room. Done. Did you feel it? Okay, let me help, because maybe I wasn't specific enough. I'm going to do a Reiki treatment on someone, not everyone, just someone in this room. Done. Did you feel it? Who felt it? Okay. Now, I'm going to pretend to do a Reiki treatment on someone in this room. The last one was for real. I actually did a Reiki treatment on someone in this room. I know somebody had a problem, and I actually did a Reiki treatment on them. Now I'm going to pretend to do a Reiki treatment on someone else. Ready? All right, could you feel the difference? Okay, let's get more specific. Somebody has a physical problem in here, just shout it out. Just give me some little thing. It doesn't matter what it is. Go ahead. Oh, knee. All right, I'm going to do a Reiki treatment on her knee. I'm a master. I'm a Reiki master. I know 10 symbols. Ordinary Reiki people only know 7. See, but I know 10. All right, here we go. Oh, wow. Getting to number 10 takes a little effort. I almost started to sweat. Okay? How'd it feel? No, I really did run through all 10 symbols. I did. Absolutely, I did. Psst, I'm kidding. No, I didn't. In fact, when I just went like this, I was thinking of Papa Joe's menu for his organic, vegan, what is it? What's the pizza that everybody likes, that Papa Joe's makes? It's organic, it's vegan, it's it's gluten-free. I was actually visualizing a gluten-free, thin crust pizza with mushrooms and peppers at Papa Joe's, which, by the way, this is a really good pizza. That's actually what I was thinking when I did this Reiki treatment. No, you know, that's ridiculous. I'm an ethical, moral Reiki practitioner. I would never pretend to do Reiki if I wasn't doing it. No, I really did do the Reiki symbol. The only thing was I got distracted for a second and I did them out of order. So I'm not really sure if they still work if I visualize the symbols out of order. I had one teacher that said that you had to do them in order. Okay? And then I had another teacher who said it didn't matter. I've actually never been able to prove if it works better one way or the other. Okay, now, one more time. Ready? Okay. Actually, that time, I actually did a real Reiki treatment, okay? But Julie said her hip was bothering her a little bit this morning. So actually, even though I was looking at her and I was projecting toward her, I actually did the Reiki treatment on Julie. Okay? If the St. Pete Ordinance had passed, everything I just did would be illegal. And that was my argument to the mayor. I was like, you cannot regulate the expression of a thought. Law, secular law, cannot regulate the expression of a thought. If essentially a Reiki practice is thinking a thing, you can't say one way or the other. You can't prove the crime or not. So you can't legislate a crime as a criminal act with a criminal penalty, jail time, fines, da-da-da, for an activity that you cannot actually prove took place. Not you, not anyone, not CSI. Okay? That's the problem with energy medicine. It's the problem with what we call religious therapeutics. It's the problem with, even for example, people will say, well, Thai massage, traditional Thai yoga is different. You have to have a license to do that because you're touching people. I'm like, that's BS, that's not true. Where did you hear that? License to touch people? How ridiculous can you be? Does your mother have a license to smack you on the head or on the behind when you're bad? That's physical, isn't it? How about this? How many people have ever gone to a church of any kind where as part of the process of being in that church, people would hug each other? Anybody? Okay? How many people have ever gone to a religious ceremony of any kind where as part of that religious expression, there was a point where somebody would lay hands on somebody else for healing? In both of those situations, are the practitioners, in other words, the people touching the other people, required to have a massage license? Well, they're touching people for healing. Well, isn't that what you just told me? Well, I got to have a massage license because I'm touching people. Well, they're touching people. Why don't they have to have a massage license? How about big preachers like Jerry Falwell and Ernest Ainsley and all these faith healers that fill up entire football stadiums? Benny Hinn once got 200,000 people in a stadium at one time so he could lay hands on them, all of them. 200,000. We're talking Super Bowl numbers. Benny Hinn, no massage license. It was simulcast to 100 countries around the world. They estimate that 100 million people around the world watched that healing ceremony, which was in the Philippines at the time. 100 million people. That's more than Farm Aid. Well, because the touching is unimportant. It's irrelevant. Because the touching is under what we call a doctrine of chirothesia, which is an expression of divinity. That when I touch you in a healing process, I'm no longer myself. I'm now an expression of some divine spiritual process of healing, which is moving through me. I am a vessel. I'm a conduit. It's not me. And the touching is incidental to the expression of healing energy, which might be called prana, which might be called breath, which might be called Holy Spirit. And the touching is incidental. The hug is a hug of brotherly love, a hug of sisterly love. We'll come back to this more later because I want to really get into it with you. But before I want to come back to the aspartame. All right? My mind is a jumble with this stuff, and the reason why is because no matter what is wrong with you, I'm going to lay hands on you. And I'm going to assume that you have toxicity from aspartame poisoning. And I don't know 100% what is the most effective detox to remove that stuff from your body as fast and as cleanly as possible and forever. And I don't know that anybody in the world does. However, I believe that because we are aware of this, that there is grace given to us in a spiritual way, in such a way that if I pray for you and I lay hands on you, even with aspartame poisoning, that there will be a beneficial consequence. Now, I won't be able necessarily to quantify it, that just because I pray and lay hands on you, that all the aspartame is going to run screaming out the pores of your sweat glands. I don't know that, okay? But I do know that the milieu, or the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual environment that the toxicity is occurring in determines severity on an individual basis. And what I mean by that is if one person is overdosed or toxic with aspartame, if two people are overdosed with the same amount of toxicity with the artificial sweetener, same subjectability to the 92 primary side effects, but only one person gets the cancer and one person gets the migraines, what's the difference between them? And it's environmental, and it's situational according to their individuality. So even if you're exposed to plutonium, cesium, strontium, cobalt, aspartame, but if your immune system is strong and functioning, if your mind is clear and healthy, if your emotions are clean, and you're not overburdened with old unresolved negative emotional issues, that toxin will not have the same effect on you as it will have on someone who's sick, depressed, infected, because opportunistically they're more susceptible to the side effects. So knowing that this is so common, and knowing that it relates to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and also altogether what we call metabolic X syndrome, nutritionally, I recommend to every person who tells me that they're on artificial sweeteners or eating processed foods that have them, that they get off of that as fast as possible. And I'll give them as much direction and instruction on what is an alternative to processed food, or what is an alternative to diet soda, even if I have to show them physically how to juice with my own blender. And I have a lot of students and practitioners who, the way they get people off the artificial drinks, like Monster drinks and that kind of thing, okay, is they teach them how to make an organic Monster drink. Using things like, oh, I don't know, kefir made from coconut milk, because that gives it a little zing, gives it a little bubbly, gives it a little of that kind of satisfaction of tickle my tongue kind of satisfaction that a lot of these diet drinks have. And then they throw in some effervescent vitamin C, maybe Emergency or some other blend. Then they throw in a little bit of EFA. They throw in a little bit of fulvic humic trace minerals. They throw in a blended juice of celery with a little beet and a little da-da-da-da, and with a little pineapple, and then put a squeeze of lime or lemon in it, and then they give it to them and they go, oh my God, that is the best thing I've ever tasted. I'm like, well, would you be willing to substitute the best thing you've ever tasted for something that's kind of okay, that you're addicted to, and which is causing harm for you? What do you say? Are you up for it as a challenge? And see, if you give people concrete examples, they're more likely to take them. And I was going to say, I've got a lot of student practitioners who teach their clients how to blend in their kitchen, that they actually take them in the kitchen, break out the veggies and the fruits and their supplements that they're going to add, and they physically teach them how to juice. because that's juice for juice, drink for drink. For me, one of the easiest things is effervescent vitamin C with a little bit of iodine, maybe like 5 drops of Lugol's, a shot of fulvic, and an effervescent vitamin C. And if you put that all in the glass first, maybe 1 drop of methylene blue, so we have a mitochondrial stimulator there. And then fill the glass with ice and then fill it with water. It's just like a soda, whatever is the flavor of the sea. There's so many ways to do this. Aspartame, you got to give people alternatives because they're addicted to the sweet. And so you've got to give them alternatives for the processed food and for the diet drinks because they have to get off of it. Your protocols, your hands-on protocols, I don't care how they are, how deep, how spiritual, how religious, will be less effective if the people continue to be toxic. And they continue to increase their toxicity. Okay? And going back to what I was coming at tangentially on the legal thing. In most jurisdictions in the United States, it is actually illegal for an unlicensed person to give someone nutritional advice for any disorder. It's actually illegal. So technically, everything I just told you that you need to do with every person you work on, which is give them some nutritional advice, at least to reduce the major toxins that they're consuming, if nothing else. It's actually illegal for you to do that unless you have an authority or authorization under which to do it. Now, if you have that yourself, and that could be a licensed nutritionist, it could be a dietitian's license, it could be an MD or a nurse, it could be, actually can't be a chiropractor or an acupuncturist. In Florida, they're prohibited from giving nutritional advice, or an MD. But otherwise, you got to be ninja about it. Or you can do it under our umbrella because we completely authorize those conversations. And I'll say one other thing about it. Bonnie knows, because Bonnie, like me, I have a history of migraines. Bonnie has a history of migraines. Maybe some of you have had migraines before. You know what we're talking about. Have you ever tried to practice your spiritual path, your spiritual practice, sit down and meditate when you have a migraine? If you haven't had a migraine, do you know what a really bad headache is? Just about everybody should know what a really bad headache is. Can you imagine if your spiritual practice involves sitting quietly and meditating, or maybe going somewhere with other people, or sitting with other people and singing or chanting mantra, or whatever is your practice, reciting from some holy book, and while you're doing it, you have the worst headache you've ever had in your life. You can't even see straight. You have tunnel vision, ringing in your ears, a slight or strong nausea, maybe a little bit of vertigo, a pounding in your head at the same time as you're trying to do that meditation. And what do you think, or let's say what if it's a yoga practice? Have you ever tried to practice yoga with a migraine? And as soon as you hit that first downward dog, you collapse and vomit. And you run out of the classroom. If you're a real trooper, you tried to work through it. Thought maybe if I do yoga, my headache won't be so bad, only to find out that yoga and headaches don't go together at all. It's a serious mistake. The only yoga that goes with a headache is savasana. Corpse pose, pretending to be dead. Is the only yoga pose that goes with a migraine. Okay? So you cannot do it. You can't practice. All right, here's another one. Have you ever tried to have a spiritual practice, to do a meditation? Like maybe you went to a meditation retreat or a vipassana retreat or something like that, a yoga retreat, only to show up with stomach problems and diarrhea. Have you ever tried to do a seated meditation when you have diarrhea? If you have, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you had diarrhea while you were driving to the meditation and pooped your pants in your car. And you didn't bring a change of pants. It happens. That's why we say things like, shit happens. Because sometimes poo has a mind of its own and acts like it. Takes control of the machine and says, I don't care what you're up to. I don't care where the rest stop is. I don't care. What do I care? It's not my issue. I'm out of here. I hope I'm not being too indelicate, but this is a real thing. Have you ever tried to do a long seated meditation when you have sciatic back pain from a displaced, ruptured, or otherwise damaged herniated disc? Have you? Because until you've tried it and you realize that either you can't get into the seated position or you can't get out. I actually had my back go out during a meditation session once, and it took 3 people to get me off the floor. It took 3 people to get me off the floor. I was paralyzed, couldn't get up. And they dragged me to a chiropractor, thank God. It was a good one. And he adjusted me, and I was like, oh, I could walk again. Okay? But I probably should have had that adjustment before I went to the meditation class, according to the chiropractor. This could have all been avoided. That's what he said. Okay? So, toxicity, a known toxic poisoning that almost 3/4 of the country is suffering from right now, means that your clients are probably going to be toxic from artificial sweeteners, right? And so your therapy outcomes will actually be largely affected by that. So you have to ask, and you got to find out. It's part of, and I don't care how you define your practice, but under our authority, we give you permission to ask all those questions and to do whatever is necessary to get that person nutritionally clean. In other words, detox. So detox, a lot of people interested in detox programs on the internet. You know, the grapefruit diet, or the master cleanse, or the liver cleanse, or the gallbladder cleanse, or the, I don't know, there's all kinds of cleanses, okay? Forget that. Step number 1 in all cleanses is to stop eating poison. That's it. You don't have to drink lemon juice and olive oil. You don't have to do anything. Step number 1 is stop eating the poison and drinking the poison. Many people will have a miraculous recovery from chronic illnesses they've had for the last 10 years within a year of just simply stopping drinking the artificial sodas and processed foods that they know. They may still be getting trace exposure in foods where it's not declared. Okay? But at least if you get off of those diet sodas and off of the foods that tell you right on the label, proudly, anything that says diet, that's proudly. Anything that says low calorie, that's proudly. Because like celery is low calorie, but you don't need to have it on the label. So I don't know that I would eat celery that had on the label that it was low calorie, because I would assume they've somehow covered it with aspartame. You know, apples, they don't say apples are low calorie. You know, that's not on the label. Grapefruit, green peppers, doesn't say low calorie on the green peppers. Spinach, doesn't say low calorie on the spinach. Okay? Doesn't need to. But anything that does say that, and the last thing I'm going to say, and then we're going to take a break here, is that part of the incentive why there's 170 million people today who are going to be chugging diet sodas all day long is because they are wanting to lose weight. because they want to lose weight. The more enlightened of them will say, I don't care what I weigh, it's more about how I look. See, that's the enlightened approach. It's not about my weight. The reason I do diet things is not to lose weight, it's so I want to improve my look. Okay? That's 170 million people today who are going to be drinking or eating some food specifically to lose weight. And in the pursuit of weight loss, which is to compensate for obesity and inflammation, which is caused by the weight loss products, an average person who drinks diet sodas gains an average of 10 pounds a year just from that alone. Diet drinks do not lose weight. Never have, never will. It's complete false myth, whatever. The average person who drinks diet sodas and eats diet food gains an average of 10 pounds a year. So that's why you have 300, 400, 500 pound people who only eat diet products and a salad occasionally. They'll say, oh, I eat really healthy. And like, yeah, you're eat really healthy with all the diet products. Okay? So the metabolic X syndrome, the cancers, the heart diseases, the MS, the brain cancers, the inflammatory disorders, really trigger to the constitutional obesity. This kapha excess, constitutional obesity. So that means most clients that you're ever going to work on have this as an issue, whether they tell you or not. Whether they tell you or not. And so nutrition, diet, what you eat, and also being able to have a conversation, because this is going to come over time, your ability to do this, you have to be able to tell someone how to lose weight. Healthfully, safely. And diets are not the answer. Diets are not the answer. Okay? We're going to talk about this more. But that's the aspartame. The other end of the aspartame stick is, as a practitioner, not only do you have to counsel people to get off of that poison, but you've got to give them what is the alternative, because the reason why they think they're on it is because they want to stay healthy looking, or they want to lose weight, or both. So you, as the hands-on healer, have to be able to give them this advice, because for lack of this advice, here's the way one of my teachers said it, it's not my thing. He said, for the lack of a good word, the people perish. Simplest way to say it. For the lack of a good word, the people perish. And they perish in innumerable ways. So, and what is the good word? How to be healthy, how to avoid toxicity and poison, and how to eat and live in such a way that the older you get, the healthier you are, as opposed to the other way. That's the good word. For lack of a good word. I'm going to give you a little teaser that comes from the Buddhist medicine. First of all, Buddhist medicine doesn't know about aspartame. That's our generation, that's new. However, disease of excess and obesity is not uncommon, and has always been more common among less educated but more income people. In other words, it's a sign of prosperity that you're fat and that your children are fat. Okay? So in the past, a lot of people would come to be monks at the temples, and they were overweight and they were obese. Okay? And so they had all the problems that overweight and obese people have, which are impediments to meditation. Do you understand? They're impediments to meditation. What if you can't sit? What if you can't, you have digestion problems, and you have headaches, and you have toxicity problems? So one of the ways that the temples handled this was through what was called the monastic diet. Okay? And monastic diet is not a particular kind of food. The monastic diet is a timing thing. And it has to do with all of the food that you eat during a day, you try to eat within a 6 or 8 hour period of the day, and then the rest of the day you eat nothing, maybe water. So for example, at Putai Sawan, we could eat from 6 in the morning to 6 at night, but we couldn't eat before 6 in the morning, and we couldn't eat after 6 at night. Okay? So that was the way I ate for years. When I went to Putai Sawan and I adopted their diet, I ate like a bleeding horse, or whatever is some gross equivalent of eating everything in sight as much as I could possibly eat. In the first 90 days I was in the school, I lost 40 pounds. I ate everything I could. I ate as much as I could. I loved the Thai food. It made me crazy. I loved it so much compared to whatever was my traditional diet. So I ate like a pig. People remarked on how much I would eat all the time. They're like, oh my God, you're eating like for 3 people. How can you eat for 3 people? And I ate for 3 people, and you know what? In 90 days, I lost 40 pounds. I was not on a diet. I'm just giving you a heads up. When you start trying to wrap your head around weight loss, one of the biggest, for us, traditional methodologies, aside from try to eat food that's actual real food, try to not consume toxins more than you can unavoidably have, and then you start doing what's called what my friend Dr. Mercola calls, actually he doesn't know he's describing a monastic diet, he calls it ketogenic fasting. Ketogenic fasting. And so you shorten the window of the day where you eat food, have a period of time, 6 to 8 hours, eat as much as you want during that period. Don't eat anything after that, which means you're fasting the rest of the day, right? So you're literally fasting for 16 hours every day. This trains your metabolism and moves your metabolic set point to a grade of higher efficiency. And then, 1 day a week, fast. Water fast, juice fast. It doesn't have to be a dry fast. But 1 day a week, don't eat anything. Let everything process. Let your metabolism regulate. And then come back the next day after the fast, eat as much as you want. Don't worry about it. But only within this time period. If you do that alone, and you're relatively active, and you do nothing else, and we can accentuate that by specializing in juices. You know, like in other words, one of the meals during that 8 hours is a juice, right? And we even have what we call juice fasting and that kind of thing, where we only eat juice. And there are a lot of ways that we can tailor this to be more efficient, okay? But an average person should lose an average of 10 pounds a month, which is exactly the opposite of what an average person who's consuming diet sodas with aspartame is gaining 10 pounds a month. 180 degrees, the opposite. Just changing the timing, okay? And ketogenics, as far as a nutritional strategy, is only good for really obese people for a short period of time, because you have to have an offset for the protein release that you have in the blood. You have to have an offset for that. It's not sustainable long term. But the timing, diet thing, actually, I know monks. I have a monk friend named Michael in Chiang Mai. He's eaten like this for 80 years. Never one drop, not one bite of food after sunset, ever. Never. Never eats before until after the morning meditation, every day. Okay? And sometimes he has lunch and sometimes he doesn't, according to how he feels. He might have a piece of fruit. Okay? But he's eaten like this for 80 years. He's the healthiest person I know. No, I'm saying that in one sense what they're describing as the ketogenic fasting is the monk's diet.
Oh.
They don't know it because they're not monks. See, a lot of people think they're inventing stuff because they don't know that somebody else is already doing it. Do you understand that? You might think, oh, I have a great idea. I think I invented this. Oh, I invented don't eat after sunset. Actually, the Buddha said that 2,500 years ago.
Is it that obese people will plateau at a certain point? That's why it's not sustainable? I didn't really understand.
Yeah, you'll plateau. In other words, if you go on a strict ketogenic diet, you'll have great results for about 90 days, and then it'll flatten out. Okay? If you persist and much longer than that, you'll actually start to have certain toxicity effects caused by malnutrition.
So to start
A
eating,
strict ketogenic diet is not a balanced diet. That's the problem. But if you're obese and you need to get non-obese as quickly as possible so you don't die from diabetes, cancer, or heart disease, okay? You need a targeted kind of diet strategy for a short time to get you out of the danger zone of dying. Okay? But that is not the same thing as a balanced diet to sustain you long term in your life. And we make this mistake. We think the way I eat today is the way I'm supposed to always eat and forever eat and all this. It's completely wrong. Okay? That's not what we're saying. Okay? And I'll give you more information about this as we go, but I want to tickle your fancy here a little bit. It's not enough to know about the toxicity of aspartame and artificial sweeteners. In the pursuit of the sweet, we have the obesity epidemic, what we call metabolic X syndrome. Okay? So the answer to aspartame is the same as the answer to how do I correct the metabolic X syndrome that 8 out of 10 of my clients have or will have shortly. How do I do it? And so we have to do both of those at the same time. And then the hands-on therapy is actually the adjunct to all of this. It's kind of what pulls it all together. Okay? Pulls it, it consolidates. It unifies. It pulls it all together. It brings in parts that are intangible, like the mind-body connection. Brings parts that are intangible, like the emotional relationship you have to your food. The emotional relationships you have to your body. Emotional relationships you have to how you look, your appearance. Okay? All of those have to be addressed. And this is no different if you have anorexia, bulimia. The treatment strategy, no different. Again, if you go to the temple to become a monk, you get on track with the monastic diet and you don't get a special diet unless you are really ill and the doctors have prescribed a temple. I know in temples where people have, they'll do insulin. Monks have diabetes, they do insulin. They're not Luddites. You know, it's not like, oh, because you become a monk and you need insulin, that you're not going to get your insulin, so you go into shock and die. They don't do that. No, they have a refrigerator. You can get a refrigerator for your room, and you can have your own insulin in your room. That's the way it's done today. There's no reason for you not to have that. They're not stupid. Okay? However, everything else about how you eat is going to be the same as everyone else. You're going to follow the same time scale as everyone else to the best of your ability with as little cheating as possible. And if you're underweight, you will gain weight. And if you're overweight, you will lose weight. That is what proper metabolically appropriate nutrition does. Okay? And you don't have to make that decision for your client. But you have to be able to have the weight loss conversation. And if your clients are athletic and are bulking up, then you better also be able to tell them how to eat healthy and do that without resorting to steroids. So if you have clients who are in gyms who are doing weightlifting and are trying to increase their bulk. It might be part of their age, okay? Guess what? You don't discount them either. Not if you want to help them live longer. All right? I'm going to tell you this. I know, I need to stop. I'm going as much as 2 minutes more. One of the first hits I had that I had to talk to people about their nutrition, regardless of whether I had the certificate or license to talk to them about nutrition, was in 1986, I think. 1986, I was a nationally certified AA, AFWB bodybuilding judge. I was one of 10 nationally certified professional bodybuilding judges part-time. And I traveled around the country and I judged professional bodybuilding competitions like the Mr. USA and the Miss USA. I also was a head judge for the Collegiate America and for other regional contests for several years. Remember I told you I was an athlete? I was in the Junior Olympics when I was 11 years old. I had to be a member of the AA, the Amateur Athletic Union, AAU, to be a competitor. I never gave up my membership. I stayed active, even long after I was in competition. And I did, for example, when karate was made an Olympic sport, okay? My older brother was the first national judge on the U.S. team in Seoul, Korea for the first Seoul Olympics, okay? As an AA judge, okay? We actually wrote the rules for sport competition for karate for Americans, okay? Et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, so some of the odd things that came about as a result of that was I was asked to be a bodybuilding judge, and I accepted, and I traveled, and I did that, and I got paid to do that as a side job, and I just loved it. And in late 1986, and I was judging the U.S. Women's Championship, and this was in Lynchburg, Virginia at that time. The woman who I placed at second place, before she walked off the stage, collapsed and died. The woman who would have been, her name was Crystal, the woman who would have been second place, not first place, she was second place. She was a magnificent athlete, really utterly beautiful lady, and you'd have to say would be considered pretty fit to be second place in a national bodybuilding competition. Died before she could walk all the way off the stage. She was on the first step going off the side of the stage when she collapsed. I was on the judging table in front and saw her fall as she came off the stage, and I jumped up and I ran over to her. Of course, like everybody jumped up and ran over to her. I wasn't the only one. But she had no pulse. She was dead. She had a cardiomyopathy heart attack. Okay? The autopsy said that her body fat had fallen, was at 3%. Percentage of body fat was 3%, which was insufficient to maintain neurologic and organ function. And she was also severely, like we're talking like 60s visions of starving children in Africa with the bulbous bellies, malnutrition. She was so severely malnourished that the arteries coming from her heart were no more flexible than the plastic on this table. And because of the excitement of the competition and getting pumped up for the competition, the arteries couldn't take the pressure. And as she was walking off the stage, she had a cardiomyopathy heart attack, and she was instantly and completely and suddenly dead and couldn't be revived. And she died. I knew her. I'd seen her in a dozen competitions. I'd seen her win. I'd seen her lose. I knew her. I was speakingly familiar with her family and with some of her friends, because competitor, I don't know if you know anything about this, but in bodybuilding competitions, everybody you know comes to see you. You know, and they're really fun. And they're pompous, and there's loud music, and sometimes they have light shows, and you know, they're just, it's like you don't understand why people go to WWF, fill the stadium, types of things, until you go to one and you're like, yeah, get them, and like, oh, ahimsa, why am I? But next thing you know, you're like, get up, you know, and you don't realize the spectacle of it is actually great fun. It's like a circus in a way. But circus is about fitness and performance and about the human body and all that. And whether you like it or not, it's a thing. It's a real thing. Okay? I wasn't a bodybuilder, but I was just a national bodybuilding judge. So I wanted to know why she died. I wasn't the only one. So we waited for the autopsy. We got the autopsy. And we found out that what killed her was not bodybuilding. What killed her was diet. She only drank diet sodas and protein shakes. Diet sodas and protein shakes. She only ate diet food before competition. Okay? She was on a ketogenic diet, emphasizing the protein. So she only ate whole chicken breast or whole cans of tuna in water, not in oil. Low-fat diet. Everything she ate was low-fat. Everything she ate was low salt, because salt makes you puffy. So no minerals, no EFAs, no carbs, mineral deficient, toxic from the artificial sweeteners, and other things like that. And her body went off like a bomb, right in front of me. Okay? And so that is actually one of the things that triggered my interest in this. It's one of the things. It's not the only thing. When my mom died 3 years ago, some of you have been in class, you know this, and I got the task of cleaning out her kitchen in her house after she died. It was my job. Julie was with me. I went in, first thing I did was I opened up all the cabinets, because we were going to have to empty all the cabinets. And then all of a sudden I got a hit, and I started looking around, and I turned to Julie and I go, oh my God, Julie. And she goes, what? I go, there is nothing, not one thing in this kitchen that is not a diet product. Not one thing. When I opened the refrigerator, it was full of liters of diet soda. There were boxes, like Costco boxes, of aspartame, sweet and low, and that kind of thing. No sugar. There was no sugar in the kitchen, only artificial sweeteners. She cooked with it. Everything was low fat. If it was a dairy product, it was a low fat dairy product. And artificially flavored and artificially sweetened, and every single product in a box or can had the word diet on it. And my mom was 200 pounds overweight when she died. 200 pounds overweight when she died. My brother lived with her for 15 years, and I asked him about it, and he says she's always eaten that way. That's always the way. That's why he said, I never eat at home. I always eat out, because Mom only eats this diet food, which just has a weird taste, and I don't like it, and so on. So for 15 years. And my mom, 15 years before she passed away, weighed 150 pounds less than she did when she died. She gained 150 pounds in 15 years. 10 pounds a year, every year, on the diet program, which, come to find out, was prescribed to her by her medical doctor for her diabetes, her heart disease, her incipient Parkinson's. She had like 8 different diseases. And her doctor said she had to lose weight and prescribed a diet, that she only drinks and eat diet food, which of course doesn't work. Not for anybody. So my interest in this started a long time ago. And it's only persisted and only improved and only increased and so on. And several years ago I came to the conclusion that we cannot do any kind of healing work if we actually think that we're going to have an impact on people's actual diseases unless we talk to them about what they eat. And we have to be empowered to do so at every level. Right now, you know more about this than the average medical doctor. Right now, you've had more formal instruction in this program about this subject than the average medical doctor. Right now. So I know you might have some trepidation about, well, I'm not really an expert and I don't feel qualified and so on. But I want you to think about it like this. If you were out in nature and you were in a place where there was a cliff, you've been there before and you know that there's a cliff and there's a 100-foot ravine off of this cliff, and you saw somebody who looked like they'd never been there before, and it's like 2 people and they're walking down the trail and they're having an argument, so they're not really paying attention to where they're going, and you realize that they are about to walk off the cliff. Not being an expert guide, not being a ranger, not being a police officer, not being a fireman, probably you would still run up and go, "Whoa, stop!" And they would go, "What are you talking about?" And you do it loud enough to interrupt the argument, right? You need their attention. And they would stop and they're kind of, "What the heck, man? Stranger, come up, getting in our argument." You know how irritating that is when strangers intercede in your argument with somebody else. Shut up, it's none of your business. No, stop, because you're about to walk off a cliff. And then they turn and look and they see the edge of the cliff. You just saved their life. It's like that. You get it? And then as you get more education, because now you're going to have some incentive and you're going to want to, you know, get the skinny on a lot of these things that we talk about, and you're going to be more educated, and maybe you're going to come back and do more classes, maybe you're going to enroll in the college and going to get the equivalent of a full-on medical education in nutrition with a degree to go with it. But whatever you're going to do, it's going to be better than what it was before, and you're going to be more inclined to speak to people and less likely to not say anything because you don't feel qualified or you don't feel authorized. So I'm going to tell you flat out, you're at least qualified to have the conversations that you can have in good conscience, and you are authorized to do so. We're giving you that authorization. It's part of your certification. We're giving you the authorization. And I will back up that. If somebody else comes along and says you're not able to have this conversation, you're not qualified, it's not under some other scope of practice or whatever, that's fine. You have them call me. Or you refer them to me, and I will clear it up. Okay? All right, God bless. Let's take a break. Let's take a lunch break.